So this has been a very long, very complicated debate, but I do want to sort of sketch out one recent proposal which was made by Governor Quinn 10 days ago today, which I think is very likely to be a sketch of the framework that we're going to eventually go with. So what does Governor Quinn's proposal say? The first thing it says is we will put in place a legal right of the participant in the pension system to have the state pay their share going forward, and that right will be actually actionable. So you could go to court and sue if the state doesn't. And the idea is that that will put in place enforced discipline, granted the state has been unable, let's say, to enforce its own discipline on this matter. The second thing it would do is increase the employee contribution by 3 percentage points. So for example, teachers who currently pay 9.4% into the system would instead pay 12.4%. State university employees who pay in 8% would pay in 11% instead. The next thing it would do is change the cost of living annual adjustment very substantially. It would first delay it, so you wouldn't get any in your first 5 years after retirement. And then after those 5 years, rather than getting 3% every year regardless of actual inflation, what you would get instead was the lesser of a half of the consumer price index, or 3%, and it would be calculated in a simple and not compounded fashion. So that's a technical point, but it's an enormous cost saver. The next point that he was a little bit vague about is he wants to change the retirement age as well, but to do it in a phased-in way. So what he said is move the retirement age to 67, phase in some fashion to create a bit of grandfathering. And the next thing that he said, which is also a little bit, well, I should say a lot vague, is that he wants to begin to shift some of the costs. So the whole premise of this discussion was there were 5 pension systems that the state is responsible for paying the employer share of, and 2 of those, the teachers' retirement system for teachers outside of Chicago and the state university retirement system for public university employees, are for systems where the workers themselves are, by certain definitions, not state employees, and so the idea is to shift some of that cost to the local school districts, the universities, or the community colleges. And then finally, he wants to get us off of this 50-year plan to fund up to 90% by 2045, instead put us on a 30-year plan to fund us at 100% by, well, I guess 2042 or maybe 2043, depending on when all this starts. So there's many questions to ask about that, but the question that a lot of employees first ask me is, well, how did that just become constitutional all of a sudden if for years the theory was you couldn't do stuff like that? And the answer is the following, and the basic theory is this. Sure, the pensions can be constitutionally protected, but if they eat up all available revenue, then a whole bunch of other stuff which is not constitutionally protected becomes likely to evaporate. Things like healthcare, things like raises, things eventually, frankly, like salary, having a job. So his proposal is to offer people a choice. You can take all those pension cuts if you want, or you can not take those. But if you don't take those, then you have to accept a different set of constitutional cuts, the first of which is that you will lose your right to the state or local subsidy of retiree health care, and the second of which is that you would lose the right to have future raises calculated into your pension when you retire.